This episode is presented by MPP, Manulife Protection Plan, the ideal solution for mortgage brokers looking to enhance their client offerings. MPP provides flexible, comprehensive coverage that protects your client's financial future, ensuring their mortgage payments are secure no matter what life brings. Offer your clients peace of mind and strengthen your value proposition with MPP. Learn more at manulife.ca and elevate your brokerage today. Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by A Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with A Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. All right. We're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast, and today another edition of the Behind the Leader series. And we're blessed to have Mario Cloutier, Head of Mortgage Creditor with MPP, on the show today. Thank you, Mario. You have a very impressive career, and we want to get into that, but more so your ability to lead such an incredible team and the behind-the-scenes stuff there. So, yeah, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Maybe we can just get into just where it all started and where you are today.
I don't know that I care to say where it started because it's way longer than I like to admit. But I've been in the financial services industry for 25 years now. I've been with Manulife for just a little over 13 years, having a lot of fun. I came from another financial institution that has now since left the mortgage broker industry. My entire professional career has been mostly in financial services, different mandate, different types of assignments. I got to work the collection end of the aspect of it, customer service, credit underwriting. So I think it gives me a much broader perspective on the collaborations between the different departments in the financial institution, which is key to a successful leadership position at this point in time.
I was going to say, I mean, you kind of need to have that, right? Because it's hard to lead without understanding the minutia of each role and process and whatnot. I mean, you're bang on. It's a key component of leadership.
The minutiae, but also understanding the frustrations that everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think any salesperson does this consciously, or any collection person does it to just be upset with the salespeople. But understanding what the key points and the key what's the word I'm looking for? The key burning factors are in each and everyone's responsibility in the process. Because in order to provide the best consumer experience possible, you need to set proper expectations at different stage. So when the expectations are met from the get-go, it's much easier for then the people in collection to find the adequate solution to help the customers. Let's face it, nobody nowadays goes into collection on purpose, wanting to just upset their financial institution. They get there because they had a specific situation and time. So if the proper standards and the proper steps are being done from the get-go, makes it much easier then to be able to do that. So I think this is fundamental. I think every organization that has a cross-functional training program for their leaders is investing in their success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I guess maybe just jumping into, like, in 2020, I believe, was when you became head of mortgage broker sales with Manulife, and then transitioning now to head of creditor with MPP. Has there been a lot of similarities, and maybe where are the differences in those two roles?
That's a great question. So I made a return to the broker industry in 2020, but back in my days at Manulife, I used to manage the sales distribution team for Eastern Canada before Manulife invested into creating a broker-specific distribution channel in 2020. I really enjoyed the experience on the other side of the fence with the advisor channel because it enabled me to see, like, what can, take some of the takeaways from the advisor channel, bring them into the broker industry, but also appreciate and get a better perspective on how dedicated and professional the mortgage brokers are to the most important financial decisions in their customer's life, which is the acquisition or the refinancing of a property. And it I guess it regained or repurposed my respect and my admiration towards the broker industry. And now to your question, the distinction between the mortgage financing and the mortgage protection, I think the process are fairly similar. I think when a customer goes to see a mortgage broker, they enter into the journey, which is, arguably get well prepared for the biggest financial decision of their life. There's several steps into that. And I've always been a firm believer, but that when customers go see a mortgage broker, it's not just about rate, but they want to get advice. They want to get cash flow management. And I would add to that, and maybe that's often overseen by some of the brokers, the adequate protection if something was to happen that's not completely within the plan that was originally designed with the brokers. So are there distinctions? Yeah, absolutely there is, but they serve the same purpose, which is give the customer the best plan and the best advice in order to make this acquisition of a property a true success.
That's a great point. And like, I see the similarities there, and it makes a lot of sense. And where we found, maybe breakdowns in just the broker's side is, especially folks that maybe weren't working at a bank prior to becoming a mortgage broker, they don't see the importance of the protection, or they just, it's not part of their conversation. And we talk about that regularly, of just when to start having the conversation about protection. And in our case, when we were brokering at the highest capacity, we made a point of having those conversations at the very beginning to start planting the seeds. From going from the broker side, from doing mortgages to then, the creditor side, do you see any ability to make a, change from, coming into this role and not being in it previously? Was there any opportunities to make positive change, especially when it impacts the broker side?
That's a great question. I think one of the first thing that struck me is, and I'm not sure if this is exactly your question, but we can come back to it afterwards. I think the first thing that struck me is, well, more specifically, how my organization was focusing on proposing the what to the mortgage brokers using a financial advisor's approach. So the distinction between financial advisors and mortgage brokers is super important to make. Brokers are involved in the day-to-day of the operation, of the transactional aspect of the mortgage financing and all of that kind of good stuff. And in that sense, they have a relationship of proximity with their clients with a specific event and time that creates a bond that's going to, if done properly, last for life. Financial advisors are planning long-term. It's a lot more business-driven. It's not so much an emotional decision. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people are, find this super important, and I'm one of them, but they're planning for the long term, whereas mortgage broker are planning for the immediate, which makes the difference. So back to your question, I think how Manulife was approaching the presentation of mortgage creditor to the broker was a lot more designed for the long term. So talking to the what, which didn't appeal so much to the mortgage broker. So back in 2023, we made what I'd call a drastic change in the sales process, and we focused going away from the what to going away from the why. I mean, at the end of the day, unfortunately, and it's a misperception, mortgage brokers often see mortgage creditor as a just a nice to have, like an accessory to the main transaction. But when you think about it for a second, even the mortgage financing is a means to an end. The end is the acquisition of the property. So as a mortgage brokers, aside from the legal compliance and the requirements and all of this, what you're doing is basically planning with the customer so that they can accomplish their dream, which is the acquisition of the property. So part of that planning should also include the adequate protection. So, 1 out of 3 Canadian customers is going to get a life event during their financial life that's going to require for them to be off work for 9 months. What's your plan for that? Forget insurance. Do you have a plan? What's your backup plan? Are you going to move in with your siblings? What are you going to do if you're facing that situation? So I think what was important to us was to actually turn this around and make sure that we appeal to the mortgage brokers and make sure that they understand that the adequate protection is part of the plan they're building for their customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with, there's a there's two ways to view this. There's the compliance component. Oh, I have to check this box to make sure I get paid.
Yep.
But there's the other component of, do you have the right mindset on this product, on this insurance? Are you having the right conversation? And, we can all agree there's a lack of that in the industry, which, we're heavily trying to improve and train. And
Yep.
we're really, blessed and super happy with the partnership that we have with MPP, because you guys are doing so much to push that as well. I mean, one thing that's interesting, we're talking about the shift from mortgage to insurance in your role, on the mortgage side, correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone's, you're marketing, you're calling, you're training to try to get brokers to send deals in. Insurance, for people that are brokerages that are set up with MPP, it's there on every file.
Yep.
So now it's just, how do we make this more effective? How do we make it more, how do we actually dive in and help the brokers understand, which is, just constant training. And unfortunately, until a client sees a situation where it's real,
Yep.
I think a lot of people put this on the back burner, right?
Yep.
And like, we've personally been through this with friends that have had situations, and that's where it got real for us. And unfortunately, that's sometimes, what it takes, but we're doing everything we can to make sure our brokers have their head wrapped around this.
Yeah. And we appreciate your support in that way. And I would tell you that over the last few months, we see a bigger buzz with respect to at least having the proper discussion. Unfortunately, nowadays, and I've witnessed it in my past life, where you just get into a broker office, they're getting the commitment signed, and it's like, oh, this is just your insurance proposal, just waive it. Now they actually say, oh, wait a minute, let's talk about it for a second. How is this important, and do you have a plan? And we're seeing a progress in that way. And I think all the manufacturers and the distributors of insurance product in the industry have a responsibility to just not only try to push the products they're selling, but also do the education of the brokers of the consequences of not having the adequate conversation. So thank you for that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, totally. Like, we have a tip that we want to share with the listeners on how to actually increase your efficiency here. So I'll save that for later. But before we move on, I just want to explore your approach to leadership, because that has been the consistent piece from your change in roles. Is you're still leading the ship, and maybe we can just talk about your decision making and where how you uncover maybe some of the core values and principles in making those hard decisions.
Yeah. I think it starts with the vision, and I know it's often used as an empty word or just an empty message, but the vision is so fundamental to the success of whatever the project is, and you got to be able to define who you are, what you do, and what you want to accomplish in this industry, and that's the first step. Like, create a vision. Now, when we started to make the changes with MPP it's almost 2 years ago now. Time flies when you're having fun. The first step we did is all right, let's look at the landscape. Let's look at what's going on in the industry, what are we trying to do. Now, our vision quickly became we want to double the size of Mortgage Creditor MPP within the next 5 years. Actually, we're well on our way to do better than that, but that's another conversation for another time. And so what we did with this vision is we actually sat down with the team, and everybody was engaged in the conversation about, all right, that's our vision. That's where we want to go. How are we going to get there? So that everybody gets to chime in and chip in. And then we created our mission statement. We just put a bunch of words on the wall and got people to build the sentences about what our mission statement is. Worked tremendously well, because if you were to walk in any MPP office right now and ask what's the mission statement, everybody's bought into that, and it's clear for everybody where we're going and when we do that. Then you set the 2-3 questions, which are leading your action on a daily basis. So whenever there's something that's happening, or there's an action that needs to be taken, or even the little steps that they do on a daily basis, from an application processor to one of the national VPs or one of the directors that work closely with me, is how is this going to help us get closer to our goal? And how is this helping the customer, the end user of that? Because in order to be able to double, we need to offer the best-in-class customer value proposition. Both the customer and the client, the customer being the one that ends up purchasing the product, and the client being the mortgage broker. How is this helping in that? So the vision of leadership is, with that mission statement, with that vision, making sure that people are enabled and empowered to then make the actions that are going to make a difference. A second thing, which is fundamental that I've always followed through all my career, every single one of the people in the org chart have access to talk to me on any given point. And it is fundamental. So obviously I talk to my direct reports 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day, but anybody, again, the application processor who wants to have a 15 minutes with me, sets it up with my EA, he's going to be able to talk to me within the next 24 hours. They got to share their concern. They got to be upfront about what their concerns are, and they got to be ready to expect the truth from me. So if they have a difficult question to ask, I don't dodge the difficult questions. Never did, never will. Sometimes I'll have to say, I'm sorry, I can't respond to you right now, but they'll know at least why I can't respond to them right now. And that makes an incredible cultures of empowerment for them because they feel like they can make a difference. The other word that is fundamental in an organization like Manulife is trust. You got to trust in yourself, you got to trust in the management, and you got to trust in the process. So do you believe in what we're looking to do and what we're not looking to do? And you know what? It may not be suited for everyone, and that's okay. Then you got to make the decisions that you got to make. But as long as you trust the process and you're looking to make the change and you trust that if you have a concern with the process, you can talk to the leaders, you can engage them in changing the process and that they'll actually listen to you, it makes the world a difference.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I'm making mental notes for things that we want to take away.
I think you'll have it on record, actually.
Yeah, exactly. How do you define success both personally and professionally?
Success can be defined in many ways. I like, how close can you stay to your vision? Like you gotta be able to stay close to your vision and the accomplishment of that vision. Success is also waking up in the morning and going to work, having fun, and trusting that you're going to be enjoying working with the people you work with. You get a point in your career where, yeah, sure enough, we're being well treated and everything. But what makes a difference, and we went through tough times. We had some challenges in our careers, but the one thing that actually made it so that we went through all those tough times is the people we were working with. You work well in building a vision, but when you're facing challenges and people feel like they're empowered, they're going to chip into that. To me, that's a successful team. Another one that's really good is in this current role that I have the blessing of having a number of people that followed me from my previous role. And, whenever a position was opening in the new role, they were the first one to apply. I say, just to let you know, I've applied to this role, super interested. I've loved working with you in the past and working with the team. And I believe of where you want to go with this. To me, that's a definition of success because we're in the business of people. Yeah, sure, we're in the business of dollars and finance and all that kind of good stuff. But the mortgage broker industry, the mortgage industry in general, is a business of people. This business wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the people. So when you have those amazing relationship with people, it makes the world a difference.
I couldn't agree more. And like, that's a testament to your leadership, especially when somebody's following you or just general retention of loyalty, within your team. Moving on to like just some of the dynamics in the industry and, the changing, the constant change within the industry. Maybe just some of the key challenges that you've faced and how you've overcome those as of late.
Yeah, lately it's going pretty well. I'm super, super excited about where things are going. Yeah, obviously we hear what's going on in the world, and obviously that raises some concerns. But I would argue that I think our industry is probably the best equipped to be able to weather those storms. I mean, we've proven it over time. Like, I often quote, do you remember when B20 was introduced in 2016? I remember the discussions back then. It's like, okay, that's going to be the end of the mortgage industry. And look where we are today, bigger than ever, stronger than ever. And actually what was accomplished in 2016 and 2008 and 1993 was the brokers in this industry stepped up and seized the opportunity to make a difference. We talked about the value and the mission statement and the vision. Well, mortgage brokers have a vision, and the vision is not just about pushing a product or pushing a rate. It's about delivering the best customer experience and the best advice-driven value proposition available in the market. Now more than ever, there's opportunities to seize to mortgage brokers. I don't want to be bad mouthing anybody, but try to walk into a regular branch and start talking about what the advice should be. Is like, they'll tell you, yeah, sure, I can give you a credit line, or I can open a savings account, so checking account. Whereas what the customers really want to know is, am I still going to be able to make my mortgage payment in 2 years from now? And what challenges am I going to be facing? And who's better than the mortgage brokers that have, think about it, the only KPI and your roles are making sure the customer is satisfied with that. This is a tremendous opportunity for you. So challenges, yeah, there is some challenges right now, but you also have the option to strive and make a difference.
So if I'm hearing that correctly, your kind of tactics from a leadership perspective, whether it be your team, brokers directly, is to talk more about the opportunity in challenging times and remind them of, different strategies, and which is very important, right? Because I think it's, there can be a lot of doom and gloom in the industry, especially right now, if you go down a rabbit hole on social media or whatnot. But so remind of our purpose and our value that we bring. Yeah,
absolutely. Why is a customer choosing to come and see you in the first place? Why is he walking into your office? He needs an advice. He needs something he can't get anywhere else. He values the professionalism of our mortgage brokers, and you guys are, prime example of that professionalism that's available in this industry today. But you got to be humble for a second, and I will never be a firm believer that they just come to see you for rates. That's not true. That's the excuse they use. I mean, do you know anybody that walks into a car dealership and says, "Oh, what's going to be my monthly payment for my car?" No.
Yeah.
Because they come into rates because they don't know how to start the conversation, but really it's like, what are the best options for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they just don't know, and that's all they know. It's a great point.
Yeah.
How do you stay ahead of market trends, especially technology and the advancements there and regulatory changes? Like, how do you stay ahead of that?
Yeah, that's a good one. So we're fortunate enough that we have a great team with Manulife. There's, I don't know, several hundreds of professionals that are working within the affinity market within the team. Some of them focus on technology, some of them focus on compliance. You got to be able to leverage their resources and their knowledge. And I'm blessed by the fact that I have some great working relationship with sometimes people that are seen as the enemy for salespeople, and they're not our enemies. Actually, they bring a value proposition. And, mistakenly, so people think that they're just there to plug the hammer. I have some really constructive conversation with the compliance and the legal team, and on challenging them on, okay, why do we need to do that? Can we find a way to go outside the box, to be compliant, to be meeting with the regulators? What's the spirit of the ask they have? So compliance, market trends, all that kind of stuff. Because we've established this position that everybody's involved in the success of our business, we can have those open and honest conversations, okay, about what's our challenge there, how are we going to overcome that. And it's not a single one-man show. Everybody needs to be involved in the conversation. Now, technology is a different beast. It goes faster than anybody can imagine. So you got to try to stay as informed as possible. I try to attend as many industry conference on technology, on the future of this industry, financial services industry in general, and a technology resources is something that's fundamental. So you got to make sure that you get the right people in the right seat, and we're fortunate to have that as well. So listen, this one, I don't know that I have a cookie cutter answer for you.
Well, no, I mean it actually just reminds me that it's more of a common sense approach to all of these pieces, and I think that's what does get lost at the bigger institutions, is sometimes the common sense starts to fall off, and the compliance piece is very important, but to your point, just challenging your team to look outside of the box, I think brings it back to more of a common sense approach, right? So I appreciate that. Maybe just touch on like your perspective on the evolution of broker and lender relationships.
When I started in this industry, and I think we talked about it yesterday, is like we used to have the brokers bring in their paper files to the office to be able to discuss this, and the conversation did include a couple swear words in both official languages. I think there was a point, and I'm going to say that's probably around the B20, where both brokers and lenders realizes that they needed each other. And I think that was a game changer. And there's a new generation of brokers that have entered the market ever since that, gentlemen like yourself, that actually, cherish and value the lender relationship as being a partnership to find a common solution. So I think kudos to the networks, kudos to the industry professionals like, CMBA, BC, MPC, that have invested a lot of time and energy on education on the both fronts. So I think it's going better. Now, obviously, financial institution and brokers sometimes have opposite agendas, and it's normal, and it will always be like that. But I think financial institutions are doing better than they used to at reacting to find a common ground that is going to be a good solution for that. Yeah, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect science, but I'm really impressed and encouraged to see the progression and the evolution of the partnership with mortgage brokers. I can't recall. I've had healthy discussions with mortgage brokers, but I can't recall the last time we had a major arguments that couldn't be resolved after a healthy discussion.
I agree. And I mean, I can speak to it from the flip side, standing in a broker's shoes. Over the years, we've seen our lenders stick their necks out. They're showing up more. They're training more. They're spending time immediately with new agents as they join our group, right? Like the level of support and service that we get from our partners is phenomenal, and it continues to progress and get better as well. So I think you're bang on with that. There was just a point in time where we both sides realized that we need each other.
Yeah.
And it's quickly progressing. And I mean, we're blown away with the partnerships that we have in our industry and how supportive they are. It makes it a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a testament to the culture you've established, though, Jed. I mean, when you welcome this feedback and those partnership with the lenders, it makes the world a difference, because collaboration means success.
100%. And to Derek's point, like just something about enjoying who you're working with, and like we're very fortunate that all of our key partners from the lender side, and brokers and all the suppliers, they're great relationships, and that just makes it, to Derek's point, more fun, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is actually enjoy what you're doing. I just want to touch on some mentorship and team building piece. So how do you foster the talent and create and just creating the resilience in your teams? Like I know you've touched on a few of these items already, but maybe just explore some of your strategies there.
Yeah. So Manulife is in my close to 30 years career now, is the organization that I've seen the most engaged in the building a development plan for all potential at all level. So it is part of the overall culture. There's an annual employee engagement survey that takes place, and there's also a plan that's developed for employee with high potential at any level. So I not only are we at my level and up, looking to engage in those discussions, but we're actually pushing for it. So often will we have a conversation with employees at different levels, says like, okay, where do you see yourself in 24 months and 5 years from now and 10 years? And talk to me about what your dream job is. And often do we see people, and anecdotally, it's like people, well, I'd like to be a director of so-and-so. It's like, okay, but that's a title. That's not a position. Tell me what the position is. What do you like to do? What, drives you back to work in the morning? Do you like to help people? Do you like to be behind the computer and crunch numbers? What is making your day brighter? And so we start, because, I read a stat lately where it said that 60% of the jobs we have today will not exist anymore in 2035. So stop looking for a title somewhere else, but look for what your next mandate is going to be. What do you like? Would you like to do? And have those conversations 2, 3, 4, 5 levels up. People get, my direct reports are okay with that, but people in the other layers of the structures, and I come up to them and say, so how long do you think it's going to take before you take my job? And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to take your job. I said, like, you should want to take my job. You're super talented, you're ambitious, you want to grow in this business, and you have all the skill sets to be able to succeed at it. Why wouldn't you want my job? And then they're surprised by that comment. But absolutely, everybody should aim. Our global CEO use that line, which I find, phenomenal. Is if you shoot for the moon, you'll always aim on the stars, and you'll end up in the stars. And I think that's the way we should be. So mentorship is about getting people to push themselves, and there shouldn't be a taboo about. Gone are the days where somebody's going to be an EVP or an SVP for 30 years and not move from there and stay there till retirement. So there should not be a taboo about having those conversations. And mentorship is about, sure, what's your career development? Let's talk about what's missing to get you there. So what do you need to focus on? What do you need to do? What are your skills? What are your opportunities for growth? And those conversations are always super fun. I mean, I've seen some of the people I've been able to mentor over the years and see their progress and what they've done either with Manulife or another organization. And I'm proud to say that we work together at some point.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I love that. I really appreciate that approach, and I can see you actually really enjoy that part of this role.
Yeah.
Well, maybe just moving into now, like some of the behind the scenes minutia when it comes to leadership in your day to day. Like, what does operational leadership look like for you? More so, like the day to day responsibilities and the critical decisions that you oversee.
Yeah. So I'm at a point in my career where I'm fortunate to have a tremendous team working with me. So I think my position now is obviously to, lead on the key strategic initiatives to, making sure that we stick to our vision and take it to the next level. But I think more importantly is I need to act as an enabler. So making sure that my direct reports, my team of directors and VPs have everything they need to get the business to the next level. So, empower them to make the decision, empower them to make the moves, empower them to speak up when they disagree on something. And I think this is fundamental. What I say to them, one of my favorite line is, if we do something good, it's going to be on all of us. If we mess up on something, it's going to be on me, because something was not done the way it should have been done. And as we take decision within a group, it makes it much easier to then make sure that everybody's going to have some stake in the game and want to take that decision to the next level. So one thing that I'm still, learning and coping with is addressing the competing agendas. So running a business unit like Mortgage Creditor, obviously, Mortgage Creditor is at the top of the list of priorities for Manulife Canada this year. There's some serious investments that are being done in technology, and they're giving us all the tools to succeed. The senior leadership really believe in us, and that tremendous support. But now you got to face the competing agendas. Like, okay, well, another business unit will come in and say, I think I can do this. So let's make sure that we can find the right balance between putting our business at the front of the operational success, but also understand what the other business can bring to the table. And you can always learn from the experience of the other business units, what worked well for you, what didn't work well for you. So it's find the right balance between being involved and engaged with our people, get them the tools to be able to succeed at that, but also stay open to what happens in the rest of the organization like Manulife, which is a phenomenal organization.
I mean, I hear a very common theme, in and around Manulife and then your team as well, which is just very clear, grounded communication and like having the right people in the right seats at the right time, right? Yeah. Which, I mean, you've obviously created a phenomenal culture there.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like we talked about the vision and how you went about the planning and collaboration there with the entire team. How do you balance the long-term planning and then the immediate business needs?
Yeah, it's a good point, because we're right in the trenches with that. We're obviously planning for the 5-year plan, which is, as I said, double the size of the business. I think we're experiencing, and I need to knock on wood and not jinx it, but we're experiencing sooner than anticipated success in the growth plan. So we're actually facing that on a daily basis now. I think what we need to do is for that type of stuff is set proper expectations. You just mentioned it a few seconds ago. Clear communication, like stay open to our partners. If we're facing adversity, it may take 8 hours instead of 4 to process your obligation. Hang in there with us. You'll still get the best customer experience. We need to be clear about that. And the other thing is the team need to be able to voice their concerns when they're overworked. Because we got everybody engaged in the game plan, everybody feel like they have a sense of accountability towards the plan, and they're not afraid to speak up if something. Now, obviously need to add the proper resources. Review your process constantly. What we're doing today, does it make sense? Is it working to the best interest of our vision, or do we need to make some changes? We're making changes every day. We also have some stuff that's working, so if it's not broken, don't fix it. But yeah, it's just a balancing act between the day-to-day and the 5 years is all about sticking to the plan while living the today's day.
Okay, I appreciate that. And
that's actually, if I could add to that, because it's just dinged in my head, that's actually brings a lot of similarities to the mortgage brokers.
Totally.
Earlier on, I was talking about the fact that you're dealing with the immediate, but you're also dealing about the 5-year plan. So what is going to be your customer's life situation? You know, I'm not sure if that's still true, but the average longevity of a mortgage now is 3 years, 8 months.
Yeah.
It was a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure if it's still accurate. But so when you're having this conversation with the client, you're planning for today, you're planning for what they need today, but you're also planning for what's going to happen in 2 years from now. So it requires a balancing act between the two. And I think there's a lot of similarities on our work for that.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a good segue just into like some of the broker centric insights and broker relationships. Like maybe discuss what brokers should understand about effective collaboration with our leaders.
I think you guys are doing great. Like, honestly, I've seen the tremendous growth in the broker industry over the last few years, and a lot of investments are done in elevating the professionalism and high standards of the mortgage brokers. I would just say continue on that path. Like, never be afraid to talk to your lender partners or partners in the industry. I mean, I'm seeing stuff that I've never seen in broker conference before, like questions on panel. I get the opportunity to be on panel and questions coming up about profitability. Like, I've never seen brokers being concerned about a lender's profitability before. So to me, that's a good sign. We're going in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we talk about that all the time. And I mean, the one thing I've noticed, especially with bankers, we have a lot of bankers transitioning from long careers at, let's say, one of the major banks that's not in our channel, transitioning into being a broker, and the reluctance to maybe reach out to the BDMs and the people like the underwriters that can support them. The one thing that we've noticed with our partners, especially Manulife, is just the willingness to help our agents, and like they're very open to taking those calls and then taking the time to sit down with them. Is that something you're pushing to your team from a leadership perspective? Absolutely.
But I think the industry in general, thank you for mentioning Manulife, but I think the industry in general is pushing towards that, because it's an industry that's in an ever-changing mode. And in order for the brokers to be striving and successful at that, they need to be able to rely on the information that's being made available. Now, I would venture to guess that bankers coming from the banking world are not necessarily accustomed to that. It's, you would think that financial institution would nurture a culture where there's access to collaborations and whatnot. From what I've been able to witness and on my many conversations with former bankers, former MMS, whatever the financial institution was, is they decided to make the changes, for the independence, but also for the culture collaboration that's available in the broker industry today that may not have necessarily been available in a few years. Let's not forget one thing. We talked about this for a second. Your only one KPI as a mortgage broker is the satisfaction of your customer. So I'm not sure that's your only one, but that's certainly your first one. The number one KPI as an MMS is unfortunately, it's the profitability of the bank. So customer experience comes second, but it's the profitability of the bank that comes first.
Hey everyone, Dean here. Quick timeout from the episode to share with you the ABW Tuesday Mortgage Memo, your weekly market highlights sent directly to your inbox every Tuesday. This is certainly one you're not going to want to miss, so make sure to sign up now. You can do so with a link in the show notes, or you can head to joinabw.ca and sign up there. This is a high-level summary of market developments, regulatory updates, and housing trends every Tuesday. So hope you enjoy it, and back to the show. Maybe you can highlight some key qualities that you, from a leadership perspective, look at from your broker partners, and where they could where a broker could potentially differentiate themselves?
I like outside the box thinkers, but that's not just specifically for mortgage brokers, but for everyone in general in the industry. Um, you can't teach the will. I mean, the will is so fundamental. The will to learn, the will to go further, to explore further with your customers. The skills you can teach. You know, anybody that wants to learn the skills, you can teach. But the will, I'm always impressed by the fact it must have been a year ago. I got a 24-year-old broker from another region in Canada that called me and said, "I want to talk to you." Like, okay, I can have my BDM call you. As no. He goes, "I've read your profile on LinkedIn. I've been able to see a couple of the interviews you gave, and I really like how you go about to do stuff. And I was hoping you could have 15 minutes for me at some point in time." And I got to admit, it must have been at least 20 years since I got one of the calls of that nature. And I'm like, okay, next time I'm in town, because it wasn't a broker from Montreal or Toronto, I'll make sure to hit you up and we have a call. He goes, "That's okay. I'll drive to wherever you want to be and we'll meet for 15 minutes. And I said, sure. And I met with this broker. It was 3 years ago. And that broker is a strong supporter of us now. And a successful one, I might add. And he actually drove, and I took him out for lunch and got him to visit the office. And I was thoroughly impressed by that. And he was humble enough to say, "I don't know much about this industry. I am really passionate about this things I've seen. I went to a couple conferences, and full disclosure, he said, "I reached out to a couple other people at your level in other financial institution, and I wanted to take you because you're actually the only one that responded to my call." And I was like, "Oh, continue on to that." And I bet you that in most of the financial institution today, if he calls up, the other leaders are taking his call.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I like
That's a bold move. I like it.
Yeah, I was really impressed by that.
Yeah. So leadership vision for the future, like what is the future of the mortgage industry in with your lens, and maybe identify some emerging trends and innovations that you're watching closely?
I think the mortgage broker industry is in good shape in Canada. I like the fact that people are looking in their rearview mirror all the time just to make sure that, competitors don't catch up to them. Not other brokers, but other market trends. We see a few signs, and not looking to quote anybody, but at some point there was a lot of discussions about, technologies taking over the mortgage brokers to be able to give mortgage. The decision of one of the partners to walk away from the Canadian market a couple of years ago is a good indication that the advice-driven solutions that are provided by the mortgage brokers are in good shape. So I am confident that if we continue on that trend, brokers continue to be actively engaged with different organizations in the industry, continue to educate themselves, we're going to see more and more in this growth over the next couple of years, just because it's the right growth. And growth is always important, but profitable growth, and I'm going to use this profitable growth just once talking about profitability in this industry. So back in the days, I remember working with a lender, and this lender was really popular, and it wasn't Manulife. And at some point in time, the lender was paying 270 basis points for a 5-year fixed. And this lender's out of the market today. And, brokers are reminiscing on the fact that, oh, it's too bad that we like them and we're sorry that they're gone. Yeah, but had you had the conversation about, is this really viable long-term? In the days, today those conversations are taking place. So the fact that everyone's investing on our industry makes me really confident for the future. I'm not sure I answered your questions, but I feel good. I feel good about where we are.
Yeah, no, we do as well, and I appreciate that. And like the one thing I keep looking at is the big stakeholders in the financial space that are not involved in the broker channel. Without naming names, like, do you see some of these bigger institutions coming into our space?
I don't know that I want to go on record on this one, but I find this one a little hypocrite.
Yeah,
because you look at the mortgage-backed securities program and who's financing them. So that said, I'll flip the coin for a minute and say, what would be the value proposition they bring to the market as a direct lender. And I'm just, listen, this is
It's a great point.
This is a slippery slope for me, but do you want to be a small player in a big, a small fish in a big aquarium, or do you want to be the big fish in a small aquarium? I think the offer that's available to the lender, the broker, and it's funny because every second year or so, there's the new flavor that comes in, and it's going to revolutionize the broker industry. No, it's not. Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, these guys are going after the MBS and the CMB market share, and I think the offer is already super good in there. Scotia is a great partner. TD is a great partner. Manulife Bank is a phenomenal partner in the broker industry for that AAA space client. And then you've got the monolines that go outside their ways to make sure that they're focusing on the broker like MCAP, First National, all these guys. Like, would that make a difference that the navy blue bank would be in this space? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point earlier, like having the will to learn and now, having a successful path forward as a broker, all the lenders that you just mentioned, plus all the other lenders that we have access to, like if you're not familiar with these programs and these products, like you're doing yourself and your clients a disservice. And, we've had a lot of conversations around Manulife with our group recently, and, clients are understanding the Man One product, which they've never used before. And they're starting to wrap their head around it. And it's taking the conversation away from rate and more about long-term strategy, which, like you said, is what the client wants. They just don't know the questions to ask up front. Right. So.
No, it's great. Yeah. And like, we're going to do another episode with Peter, who we have a great relationship with at Manulife, and get more into like the tips and strategies of how to be effective with, selling creditor protection. But the one thing I just wanted to touch on is something that's worked really well for us, which I briefly touched on earlier, was just when to have the conversation and having it multiple times. But one thing we found very effective recently, and back to building relationships with your partners, is having a good relationship with your lawyer partner that's closing the transaction. And when a client, maybe chooses not to take creditor insurance, let's say maybe at the first call, or the planning session when you're delivering the strategy, or again at closing, having that partner present that agreement once more when they're actually signing, with the lawyer, we found very effective. Is there anything, or like, does that stick out to you, or is there anything that you've seen that works well?
It's funny enough, like I've been asked across the country, what's the best time to talk about insurance? So first of all, and be prepared for the shocking statement, and maybe the segment for the intro to that is, let's not talk about insurance. Let's talk about protection. Insurance is a scary word. Oh, you got insurance for this, you got insurance for that, you got the long-term insurance for the car and then the stereo you bought. Throughout the conversation with your customers, you have conversation about the plan. You're getting a mortgage, but what's your 2-year plan? What's your 3-year plan? In the first step of the exercise, what do you do? So customer walks in looking to buy a property, looking to do some renos, looking to travel, whatever the case may be. One of the first steps is you look at the assets and liabilities. So you look at it from the lens of qualifying the clients with the TDS, GDS. One more question. What kind of insurance coverage do you have? Do you have insurance long-term? So well-known fact across the country, and it's available on different financial consumer sites, you need to have 7 times your annual income as a protection, the adequate protection. So more than 80% of Canadian consumers are underinsured. Just ask the question. Immediately you're planting the seed. You're building a plan with a client, and the plan is including what happens if I mess up? What happens if there's a catastrophe? So you've already addressed a question of, the adequate protection. As you build the rest of the stuff, and we've talked about the plan and we've talked about the future and have this in your conversation, then this is the moment where you bring it back. I don't know if I said it this morning, but 1 out of 3 Canadian consumer is going to get a life event. There's 3 of us around the table. Yeah. One of us is going to need to be off work for 9 months, because of a life situation. Yeah. Brace yourself, guys. It was me. It's already done. So the 2 of you are safe, but one of the 3 of us. So when you have a conversation with a customer and they sit around your table there, you don't want to kill the joy of, getting the mortgage financing, but you feel great today. You have a rush because you just got your mortgage financing. What's going to happen if, knock on wood, but one of you cannot work in the next 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And like that question about do you have insurance coverage?
Yeah.
The common feedback is yes, I'm covered at my work, and we just talked about like earlier, like what's your goals and vision of as leading your team. Well, like those same sort of conversations can happen with your clients as well. It's like, do you envision yourself working with this employer forever?
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and a lot of times the response is no. Right. So, well, where does that coverage go after that point? And like, is your next employer going to have something, similar? And in a lot of cases, maybe you should read what that actually does cover you for. Right. And what we found is it's pretty inadequate.
Yeah. Just be careful not to fall into the needs analysis perspective, because mortgage brokers are not necessarily licensed for that, but you can point them to, Financial Consumer Agency Canada that talks about the need for 7 times the insurance. There's some stats that are being published by CAFE, which is the MPC of insurance brokers, and to the fact that more than 8 out of 10 Canadian consumers are not protected adequately. So the 7 out of 10, just as a benchmark for everybody, you get them to go back to their coverage, and they'll notice that they're not covered 7 times. Usually your coverage at work is 1 time, and it's like if it's for disability, it's financial underwriting. So let's just say your salary is $100,000 a year. You're only going to get 60% of that for a 24 months period. Yeah. Now, if you get disability on an MPP, and I don't want to go towards that, but it's not on financial, so you can have your disability from work cover your needs to maintain the same lifestyle, because God knows if you're off work, you want your kids to continue figure skating and soccer. Yeah. And if you have to use the 60% to do that, and you also probably qualify the clients, especially here in BC, at the 44 mark. So what happens if they lose 40% of their income? Yeah. Those are all tricks you can use.
Yeah. Great strategies.
Statements.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, looking to wrap here, I just wanted to touch on your educational approach and your willingness to support our group in that. And we're about to head to a luncheon with about 25 of our agents, and one of the things you said was bring the hardest questions. Yeah. And the whole point of this is let's address some hard questions. Yeah. And as a group in the room, we have a diverse set of experiences, from very experienced brokers that do a ton of business to people that are maybe only been doing this for 3-4 years. Is that going to be part of your approach going forward, is continuing to get in front of the broker industry, and how are you empowering your team to look to do more of that?
Absolutely. We went from a reactive sales mode to a proactive sales mode for the entire sales team, and nobody can diffuse from doing what they're supposed to be, which would be in front of brokers, because we set it from the top down. Like even my boss is on the road often to meet with mortgage broker. He was in your office back at the end of January. So we make sure that we're in front of brokers, at least 4 days of the week. And what we've done to do that is we've changed the structure model where everything that's not sales related, we talked about our mission earlier. So everything that's not sales related, salespeople are not to do it. We got somebody else in the team to tag this along so that salespeople can focus on sales. And their number one mandate is to go in front of brokers. Now, you can't be asking a broker to do something or provide something or try to sell something until they fully understand what you're asking them to do. So the first couple of visits that you have within the new broker office is going to be to alleviate all of the questions that are coming up. And oftentimes, 9.5 times out of 10, there's misperceptions. Oh, I'm not in the insurance business. Yeah, you're not, but you're in the protection business. I can't do that. It's too expensive. Okay, but in some cases, it might be the price of a coffee a day or something. And what's the game plan? We're not necessarily, and sometimes I push the limit to say, that's fine. If the customers have a plan and this plan is viable and sound, then don't sell it.
Fair. I mean, that's a great way to wrap up here. And honestly, you've been great. There's been some unbelievable takeaways from a leadership perspective here, and we really appreciate your just openness to come on and any final comments?
No, thank you so much for having me. I love doing that kind of stuff. I hope that you got what you were looking for.
Oh, 100% we did.
As far as content for me, and I look forward to see each and every one of you on the field and all of the people in your team. I thoroughly enjoy spend some time in BC.
Absolutely. And we appreciate the partnership with Manulife and MPP, and excited to continue to grow together.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Lastly, a vital announcement about Backpack Buddies, our chosen charity for 2025. This remarkable organization addresses a hidden hunger issue many are unaware of in British Columbia. While school districts provide meals during school hours, numerous children face food scarcity at home, particularly during the weekends. Backpack Buddies steps in to support these vulnerable children, ensuring they have easy to prepare, familiar food for weekends. This is achieved through collaborations with schools and an extensive distribution network. Your contribution can make a significant difference. With just $20, you can give a child in need a food bag from Backpack Buddies filled with enough meals and snacks to sustain them over the weekend and more. Once again, thank you for listening and see you on the next one.